Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad. Tehami. The newly elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, has thanked the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his congratulatory message. Let me quote him. Thank you at Narendra Modi for felicitations on my election as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, unquote. He posted this on X, formerly Twitter. Earlier, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had congratulated the Prime Minister for being sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Let me quote him as well. Congratulations to CM Shehbaz on being sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, unquote. We've also seen US State Department spokesman Matthew Miller says, let me quote him as well, the US values its relationship with both India and Pakistan, and we want to see them have a productive and peaceful relationship, unquote. Foreign Office spokesperson of Pakistan, Mumtaz Zara Baloch, in her weekly press briefing said, let me quote her, Pakistan has always said that it would welcome mediation by friendly countries when such a proposal comes to us formally, and only then we will be able to respond, unquote. On the other hand, we have seen Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi making his first visit to Srinagar in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir today, since his government revoked the Article 370 of IIOJ, snatching its autonomy and making this unilateral and illegal move. Speaking over there in Srinagar, he said, let me quote, friends, Jammu and Kashmir is touching new heights of development because it is breathing freely. And the freedom has come after the removal of Article 370, which had been a barrier, unquote. Responding to this particular visit, Pakistan's Foreign Office spokesperson Mumtaz Zara Baloch has said, let me quote her, we believe these efforts to project normalcy are a facade, and tourism cannot be promoted in a situation where local people are being intimidated and their rights and freedoms are being denied. We have always said Pakistan would like to have good relations with all its neighbors, including India. However, these relations must be based on respect and equality. It is also important that issues of concern to Pakistan, including the support for terrorism and extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings by India in Pakistan and Kashmir, will always be a priority when such engagement takes place, unquote. In today's show, we'll be taking all these aspects, important statements up for discussion and the analysis on these statements. Also, we'll be including the story of a Muslim resident of New Delhi whose house was demolished illegally by Indian authorities back in November for rescuing 41 laborers in a tunnel. He rescued them and became a national hero, and 3 months down the lane, he is homeless. Also, we'll be bringing up a report by Kashmir Media Service about Indian authorities' demolition of houses and forced evictions in India from a period from 2022 to 2023 as well. For all that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Awais Bin Wasi, is Kashmir Affairs expert. Dr. Wasi, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, his former ambassador. Ambassador Khan, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Palwashah Ayaz Khan, legal and foreign affairs expert. Dr. Palwashah, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Wasi. Let's try to analyze this particular statement which Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made during his visit to Srinagar. Friends, Jammu and Kashmir is touching new heights of development because it is breathing freely. And he has also called this Article 370, that was a barrier in that particular freedom and the subsequent development. Does this particular statement actually depict or speak about the ground reality ever since that revocation of Article 370 and 35A of Indian Constitution happened?
Thank you so much for having me in this show. Regarding this recent visit of Indian Prime Minister Modi to Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the statement that you are referring, I think that it is quite contrary to the realities in the ground. And I'll speak with particular reference to the data. In terms of unemployment, the percentage in Jammu and Kashmir is 21%. In all other Indian states, this percentage is 7% and it is 21%. So the claim that they made before the revocation of Article 370, that was that we wanted to bring development and we wanted to alleviate poverty in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, but that is the figure. Apart from that, if you see the two documents that I would like to refer, number one is a book, Dismantled State after Article 370, produced by Anuradha Bhasin, editor of Kashmir Times Jammu, and the other one is that 4 consecutive reports issued by concerned citizens of India, which included quite senior former bureaucrats and others, senior people. So if you come across these one book and the other report, so with evidence you will find that the statements which are being made in the recent visit by Prime Minister Modi, the situation in the ground is quite contradictory and quite contrary. There is no echo of that thing. And this visit, and apart from that, if you see the UAP, the way it is used to persecute the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and the number of students, civil society activists, journalists, rights defenders, they are behind the bars just for saying something which perhaps Modi administration doesn't like. Okay, so if you see that, and the other development, if you see in the ground, that is disenfranchising the people of Jammu and Kashmir, dispossessing from their land. Okay, so I think that this visit ought to be seen from the upcoming Lok Sabha polls, because Modi tries to project this image in the center, mainland India, that everything is normal and there is peace in Jammu and Kashmir, but the situation is very troublesome and quite contrary.
So what about the constituency, particularly of the Muslim majority population in Kashmir? Does these promises, the false claims which are contrary to the ground situation, do they serve the purpose as far as the impact on the general elections is concerned for BJP in particular?
Another indication that I would refer is that 2 regional parties, one National Conference and PDP, they have always been siding with the center, right? But this time you will see that they try to distance themselves from Modi's claim. PDP is Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Abdullah of National Conference. They also, in their statements and in their tweets, they distance themselves from Modi. The reason is same and the simple, and that reason is that the ground is not going to accept what Modi tries to sell. That is why in Valley there is no acceptance for the narrative which Modi administration or Prime Minister Modi in the latest visit.
Dr. Wasi, you just mentioned about Umar Abdullah as well. Now these particular 2 parties, the PDP and the National Conference also, they previously sided with the center. Now after the revocation of Article 370, their stance has been totally different. Now there is a statement, Ambassador Khan, from Umar Abdullah regarding this particular visit by Narendra Modi to Srinagar. He says that employees who don't show up are being threatened with disciplinary action. Nobody is going in that particular rally or the public gathering of Prime Minister Narendra Modi as per his own free will. Now, also these statements, the freedom and the kind of claim that is made regarding the development in IIOJ, especially considering 370 a barrier in that development and freedom. What's your understanding? Aren't these statements contrary to the ground situation? And if such statements are coming up, do they have to do anything with the upcoming Lok Sabha elections in April and May?
Obviously, with the elections coming up, there are many narratives that the Modi government will try to propound. But, people in Kashmir, in occupied Kashmir, know the ground reality. People in the rest of India also have a very good idea of all kinds of false narratives that have been promoted by the BJP government, especially for the consumption of the public prior to these elections. Now, as far as the approach or the access of foreign media is concerned to be able to assess the real situation on the ground, that is still restricted. Whereas the Indian media, of which there are about 400 television channels and about 100,000 different newspapers, the majority of them have either been co-opted by the government or have been paid off in one way or the other. And there are some very rabid kind of television stations that continue to break the law, not only by publishing or broadcasting false news, but actually spreading and inciting hatred, and yet they are beneficiaries of some of the largest advertising campaigns that the government pays for. So this is something which unfortunately the uneducated elector may not be privy to, but people who are educated and have access to social media and other sources of news, they obviously know the game that is being played.
So even other than that, Ambassador Khan, we've seen since the revocation of Article 370, there has not only been a crackdown against even the international media, it has been victimized by the authorities over there. There's been a complete communication clampdown also over there, and the journalists who had been trying to highlight the ground situation through pictures in different textual formats, they had been booked under draconian laws. One already mentioned that Unlawful Activities Prevention Act as well as the Public Safety Act. So I mean, what sort of an impact if such type of speeches and such type of visits are being made ahead of the Lok Sabha elections? Do you think it's going to have any sort of impact when we talk about the domination of Muslims in that particular territory? Is it going to have an impact as far as that particular constituency itself is concerned for a result that BJP actually looks forward to?
In my assessment, if there is a free and fair election held for the Lok Sabha in Kashmir, and there are independent observers allowed to go in there, then there is no way that the BJP government, after all that it has made the Kashmiri people go through, there is no way that they are going to win in Kashmir. So as far as the rest of of India is concerned, ever since the BJP government has come in, you know, the international community is well aware of their anti-Muslim policies and of the fact that they encourage extremist groups like the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and Bajrang Dal and people like that. So that is very, very clear to everyone. And the Muslims in the rest of India also, this is a deliberate policy to actually divide and create hatred, because it seemed to have worked so far. In the 2019 elections, they had a similar stance and they managed to create hatred and support those people who were extremists, and yet the majority of the Indian public voted for the BJP. Primarily it was, in my opinion, a diversionary tactic to divert attention away from the unfulfilled promises of the BJP. So this is something which might very well work in the rest of India. But if there is a free and fair election in Kashmir, I don't think there's any way that the BJP could win.
Right. Let me proceed to Dr. Palwashah also. Dr. Palwashah, looking at this particular statement by Narendra Modi about freedom, and that freedom comes after that revocation of Article 370. Is it true? Because we have seen after that revocation of Article 370, more Indian troops were stationed over there. Around 1 million are being stationed over there, making this particular territory one of the biggest open-air prisons in the world. The complete curfew and the clampdown over there, people not having even access to the basics, including the healthcare facilities as well as education. The economy is tumbling down. Is the development happening over there?
Look, Junaid, let me just, when you just look into the Article 370, look into the background of it, and you will come to understand the psyche or the modus operandi that they have. Just the Modi government, or see the characteristic, or when you go back, Modi depicts and believes in the Akhand Bharat. Akhand Bharat, what is that? What does that depiction lie? What is that slogan? So the slogan is for the unification and eradication of certain elements in their territorial jurisdiction or in the territory which opposes or is averse to their policy. Article 370, you just depicts, it's a clear cut, it slices through the cake to give you the open, it's like a plethora of things which are confined and which integrizes, or it's a nucleus thing which they want to propagate. Since it's been 76 years since the founding fathers, since Pakistan came into existence, and in 1948 when we went back to fight for our land, what was it? You had Junagadh, you had Hyderabad, and you had one more state. What happened to that? You could not. We fought for it, but that was territorially not possible for us to take. But we claimed a portion on the western frontier of a geographical frontier. We went for the Kashmir. So Kashmir, that point was to totally eradicate the ethnic as well as the religious aspect of that area. And this particular constitution thing is got this undercover lining thing, is to eradicate completely. There should be no iota of doubt to have it eradicated from the complete perspective of the geographical thing.
And the kind of action so far after that revocation of Article 370, as Dr. Wasi also mentioned, the disenfranchising of the Muslim population from their native lands, and by issuing
It's
those
genocide.
domicile certificates to non-natives and bringing in the Hindus over there. So that ethnic cleansing and the genocide, the systematic
That's a clear
way.
genocide. That's a clear genocide. That's what is going to be the slogan for the present day time for our government, and that is the thing that we are propagating and we are highlighting on the World Forum, is to look into this thing and to look into this thing from the global perspective. Our government, we have look, despite the fact that Pakistan was cut off from the subcontinent's thing, India still had the upper thing. But we as neighboring countries wanted to have a brotherly, a sort of, India was like a older brother sort of a thing, to have that kind of a relationship with them. And amicably we have put it across over, I think, more than 2.5 decades. This has been on the forum of the UN, to have a plebiscite, to have the Kashmiris speak for themselves, to have the right, and that right has not been put across. That right has not been. That right, you see in that thing of that Hindu thing that happened. That
Right,
was
Dr. Palwashah, when you talk about, as you mentioned, everybody knows that this particular dispute, this internationally recognized disputed territory, there are several United Nations Security Council resolutions, and it is up to the aspirations of the Kashmiris themselves. Those resolutions provide them with their inalienable right to self-determination. But rather than going towards that particular direction, there has been a 180-degree opposite action. Altogether, the revocation of Article 370, that was not against only the international law, but also the bilateral agreement between Pakistan and India and its own constitution itself. Is there any sort of a mechanism in the international law when such type of violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions that mandate the inalienable right to self-determination of a community of a certain territory you've been oppressed over and over the years, is there any mechanism in place that could be made operational? As
a student, while I was studying on this international forum and this genocide and this Kashmir, Nasir would also agree to this thing, that globally United Nations has under Charter 5, 4, 5, 6 and 7, we have countless times we have gone on the World Forum to put this up and put it up as a case of not mistaken identity, of as a genocide where it's like we gave an example of a cat and mouse thing, that we are being cornered. It's not a question of territorial, who has the right, but it's the right of the people. The United Nations Charter has amended countless number of times, and it's been brought to the forum that this is a conflict of laws issue. The conflict of laws issue has to be settled by the neighboring countries, irrespective of what their constitution propagates. It's not a constitutional, now it's been put up. ये हमारे लिए एक, it's like it's been put up as a problem, which the crux of the problem is what? It is bordering and it is hampering our charter of consensus, which started off in now it's been in 2014. We had brought this issue back. That's now, despite the country having it's a nuclear power country, but the genocide has taken a very volatile situation.
Right, Dr. Wasi, a supplementary question related to that in disenfranchising Muslims from their land. Now, the impact on the upcoming Lok Sabha elections as more and more non-natives are being brought in, they're being issued the domicile certificates over there for IIO-JK. Do you think with that particular change, they've mustered enough strength now to have any sort of impactful result in the upcoming elections for BJP in particular?
You know, in the valley, I don't think that there will be any impact and any benefit which BJP can gain. But BJP will focus only Jammu division, and in the two constituencies, Jammu and Udhampur, and these two seats BJP is eyeing on, and BJP tries to get these two seats. As far as the two seats of Kashmir, rather three, because that has been demarcated, Anantnag seat, that was exclusively Kashmir Valley seat, but now it has been through the delimitation commission, it has been redrawn. But these three seats, I don't think that BJP will be able to have any role on these seats. So, so keeping this thing in view, I don't think that because of this domicile certificates being issued, BJP is going to have some benefit. But
the intention behind it was pretty much clear, wasn't it?
Yes, intention is very much clear.
It was basically focused on to get that particular desired result.
Yes.
In this particular election.
Yes, that
particularly
is
this
two things that I think that we need to understand. One is that this Lok Sabha election, this is this prelude and harbinger of state assembly elections, and maybe state assembly elections might be held simultaneously with Lok Sabha elections, and maybe later on these elections might be held. But the target basically is not the Lok Sabha elections. The target is to install their chief minister, Hindu chief minister, in the next state assembly election. And for that they have done all these domicile certificate that you are referring, and the delimitation constitution that you've done.
Dr. Jawad, I'll give you the proper time. Let him please complete.
So that was the original ban. If you see, the initiatives that they have taken, for example, that the number of seats, if you see that in Jammu earlier the seats were 37, and now the number is increased to 6 number, and total number of Jammu seats are 43, and in Valley the number of seats were 46, and they have increased just 1 seat. Look at the irony that the population, the majority is Valley, and Jammu is less in number in terms of the population, in terms of the percentage, and 6 seats have been increased, and in Valley there is only 1. So this is basically a deliberate attempt to change the change the balance in the number of the seats. And because in the last coalition government with the PDP, so they managed to get the portfolio or the seat of deputy chief minister. Nitish Kumar was the deputy chief minister at that time, and now they are trying to install their chief minister, and because of that they are doing all these things. So by this thing, there are chances that they could do that. But as far as this valley area is concerned, the population in the valley, I don't think that there will be any major breakthrough there.
Dr. Palwashah, please go ahead.
I
Please
was
complete your
just wanted to add on, like the way Wasi has explained it very well. The only thing was that he talked about that the upcoming elections, they will, to my better judgment, maybe I can be put to question on this, that it's a fork, it's a 2-point fork, and the nationalistic feeling of the country are being pressurized or are being suppressed on broader perspective, whether it's the BJP, whether it's the Congress, their commission, like you just said, the limitation, the commission is more or less redundant. They are also having the secular thought process is taking a sort of a change. They want an uplift, that this Kashmir problem is been on the back burner for a fairly long time.
Right.
Irrespective of all the the plebiscites, the entity, the desire of the present government, Modi government, I'll just put it across, is to eradicate the ethnic element, the ethnic conglomeration, and the religious element, merge it together with the rest of the country.
Point well taken. Ambassador Khan, let's take your analysis regarding this congratulatory statement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to newly elected Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif here on assuming the charge of the premiership. Let me quote it. Congratulations at CM Shehbaz on being sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and that's about it. How do you analyze the tone, and is there any intent behind such a message?
Well, firstly, it is a formality that most heads of state and government extend to any incoming government. But having said that, the family of Shehbaz Sharif, and especially Mr. Nawaz Sharif, holds a soft corner for the Indians. And I am hopeful that some kind of inroads may be made in the future, if not initially, perhaps after the elections. Because as I said, the BJP government uses its anti-Pakistan and anti-Muslim stance to garner votes in India. So I don't think that he would make any kind of overture towards Pakistan before the elections. After the elections, if you compare the previous government to the present incoming regime and the family connections that they have had with Indian leaders, I think is a good omen in a sense. But I'm still not sure whether it means anything more than a formal greeting.
Right. When we compare this particular greeting this time around as compared to the last greeting that he extended to Shehbaz Sharif back in April 2022, that was quite lengthy, and that contained some other elements also. If you want, I can.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you see, the
So
elections will be either at the end,
exactly,
either at the end of April or May, and Modi cannot afford to change his stance towards Pakistan.
Okay, so
you have seen the sort of stance he has had. It's basically trying to beat the same horse again and again. It is to try to, because it seems to work. It seems to appeal to those Hindu elements, not necessarily the very extremist even, because when you have an election and he has such a large victory in 2019, it's obviously there's something is working.
And what about the timing? I mean, 2 days before he's sending out the greeting, and 2 days after he's visiting Srinagar.
Yes, of course.
I mean, is it deliberate?
I couldn't say. It could be a coincidence. It could be, because
so
frankly,
it's not a well thought out plan. Let me take this point
No,
to Dr.
it's
Wasi. What's your opinion about it, Dr. Wasi? Isn't it a well thought out, a deliberate attempt, again, 2 days before you are sending a greeting message to the newly elected Prime Minister here in Pakistan, 2 days after you are there in Srinagar, saying that a revocation of Article 370 was the main barrier to freedom and development.
You know, if you see the statement of Narendra Modi and BJP-led government since the beginning, so they are very thoughtful and calculated. And what I think is that on the one hand, Prime Minister Modi tries to give this impression to the international audience that we are extending olive branch. We are, extending the hand of peace to our neighboring country. But practically, if we see, what Modi is doing in Kashmir, that is not, in line with the statements which Prime Minister Modi is issuing and giving. So I think that is one for international consumption, and the second one is for the domestic consumption, that visit of Kashmir and giving this impression to the mainland of India that we made that claim, we made that pledge and promise that we will bring peace and after revocation of 370, and we did it, and that should be reciprocated in the upcoming Lok Sabha elections.
Right. Ambassador Khan, you already talked about this particular statement, also mentioning another point. Let me bring in this particular statement, the reciprocatory statement that came from Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also. The length and the tone of it, how do you analyze that? He's simply thanked him. Thank you, Narendra Modi, for felicitations on my election as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. That's about it. Equal reciprocation.
Indeed. I'm sure the Foreign Office
and
gave him this advice.
What makes him the statesman? So he is the Prime Minister of the country. Earlier you mentioned a point towards a certain specific family. Now he's the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Not also that, we have also seen Pakistani authorities, it's been a stated policy that Pakistan has always been desirous of friendly and brotherly relations with all its neighbors, based on equality and mutual respect. That is what exactly the statement that came today from the Foreign Office spokesperson also. It's very important to mention that one also here, that we have always said Pakistan would like to have good relations with all its neighbors, including India. But there are certain conditions, the concerns of Pakistan, which have been long held, primarily the illegal and unilateral actions, the human rights violations in IIOJK, and then the Indian state sponsorship of terrorism, extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings also.
You see, Pakistan needs to keep the issue of Indian occupied Kashmir alive, okay? At every possible forum, at every possible opportunity, they need to provide support to the people of Kashmir. We cannot take Kashmir militarily. And as far as our relationship is concerned, if we always put a caveat, then things are not going to go anywhere. In this world today, you need to make some compromises. China, for example, has had many irritants around. Even with India, as you've noticed, they still do more than $130 billion of trade with India. India is now being strategically supported as a bulwark against the influence of China. They both know this, but as far as I'm concerned, India is taking the West or the Americans down the garden path. India is never going to have a direct conflict with China, especially protecting the interests of some other country. If they are directly attacked, obviously they will respond. But my point is, China is an example which has put certain irritants in the back burner for their economic or foreign policy interests. Now, as far as I see it, Pakistan for the last 10 to 12 years at least is keen to talk to India, okay? But we have not had an equal response from them. And we have a certain amount of self-respect too. We can't keep chasing after somebody who is not interested in talking to us. Okay? One day India will come round to talking to Pakistan. The reason for that will be that all these large investments that the United States intends to bring into India to uplift the economy, to make it a strong power that can stand up to China, those investments will come from individuals who have earned their hard-earned money. Now, imagine somebody who comes into India with a very, very large investment. I'm sure their concern is going to be the relationship with a neighbor that's nuclear armed and continues to have a very sensitive issue. So, India will finally realize that if economically we are going to step up into another league, we need to make peace with Pakistan. And at that point, in my assessment, it will co-opt China, which will surprise you, because they would like China to come to the table or bring Pakistan to the table. That is the day that things will move. Right. Apart from that, for the near future, both sides, both governments, both foreign offices are just posturing. Right. This is mere posturing. But if you give me a curt statement, I'm going to reply in the same cold manner. That's all there is.
Right. Dr. Palwashah, please go ahead. You have a point to make?
Yes, I had, like, in continuation what Sir has just mentioned, I would just say that what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour at this point in time is that India, being our neighbor, we can't detach our neighbor. We can't just throw it into the Arabian Sea, and we have to coexist. The problem at the moment, you see from 1948 onwards, you see we've had wars. We had the first actual, we went on the border frontier in 1948. We had to collect on the bordering Pathan militants, you could say, along with the very weak Pakistan army at that point in time, but had just come out from an independence. We went on and we claimed a portion of the land on our western frontier. We claimed that. We've gone through wars. War is not what we need, despite the fact what you say that we are the what you call, we have a nuclear, but the world...
Is it Pakistan who has wanted to have a war? I mean, isn't it, as you already mentioned in your take, that India should ideally have been in the role of a big brother after the independence, right? And isn't it incumbent upon the Indian authorities to make some gestures, to have those confidence building measures, if they are also serious about having peace in the region? And
they need to
backing away from all those gross human rights violations they are perpetrating with so much impunity in contravention of international law.
Absolutely.
In IIOJ. Why is it only on Pakistan to make a vote?
No, it's not on.
So how Pakistan has been wanting to go to war?
Pakistan has
when there has been
Pakistan has not been wanting to go to war.
Ceasefire violations happening from that side also. There was the loss of life, loss of property, indiscriminate, unprovoked fighting happening from across the border. So what should India be ideally doing?
Ideally, India should be looking at, we are two sides of a coin. There's one side is India, the other side is Pakistan. We need to look into what is the fundamental issues at the moment that is both the countries are facing. We are putting a huge amount of money on both sides on getting a budget to be military wise, we are not doing it. It's them.
Have you gone through those statements which come back and forth from the top leadership of the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Indian authorities?
I've just mentioned
as to the status of the Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. So, I mean, where from that particular provocation actually happened?
The provocation is coming right from the top, right from the Modi government. This is called the bullheadedness policy that India is adopting, and India has adopted for a very long period of time.
Right.
And that is the crux of the problem that we are facing right now. See the examples of European countries. See Germany. See East Timor. What is it? They all are now resolving their issues. They are looking into this thing that we are.
Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to cover certain more very important aspects. Dr. Wasi, this particular statement by US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller saying, of course, we would welcome productive and peaceful talks between Pakistan and India, but the pace, scope and character of any dialogue is a matter of for India and Pakistan to determine. It values its relationship both with India and Pakistan, and we want to see have a productive and peaceful relationship. How do you look at this statement? Is it an implicit sort of an offer of mediation or something like that?
I think that this statement, as just Ambassador Saab has said, that just formality and customary statements came from US administration, because had the US administration been serious enough, I think there should have been some decisive role that US administration could have played. If you see the US role in the early phase of this issue of Jammu and Kashmir, it was very positive, especially in terms of the United States UNSC resolutions. But after 1988, after the Pressler Amendment in 90s, and particularly after 9/11, the policy of the United States was just to manage the conflict of Kashmir, not to resolve the Kashmir conflict. In two campaigns of former President Barack Obama, he also particularly mentioned for mediation in his campaign, but later on that idea dropped. But when the 2002 standoff between India and Pakistan occurred, United States intervened for de-escalation. But when it comes to the resolution of Jammu and Kashmir, United States, I'm sorry to say that
it leaves it up to both India and Pakistan bilaterally to
no,
go
if bilaterally, for example, that if it is consistent to bilateral resolution of that issue, then United States should play its role to implement the Simla Accord, because Simla Accord also says that bilateral means should be adopted to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir. But as just Ambassador Saab was saying, that we are trying to approach Indian administration, Delhi administration for talks, but on the other side there is cold shoulder response.
Yeah.
So how can we do that?
Right.
So United Nations, United States, instead of focusing on geopolitical expediencies and geopolitical consideration, should push India to come on table to resolve it.
Right. Ambassador Khan, your last quick closing comment regarding this particular statement. Also, you already mentioned that it would be India which will eventually have to come to the negotiations, talk to Pakistan. And it's in the interest of the US because it's investing to bring in economy in India as well. And Pakistan has always said, okay, we accept the third party mediation. Once it is made, then we'll consider it. Your last closing comment regarding.
You see, an issue between two nuclear armed states, which can easily, through some mistake of somebody, flare up into an all-out war, is an issue that should concern the global community. So I'm quite baffled that even when we were allies of the United States, they seem to be convinced, or they seem to stick to the view that this resolution ought to be bilateral. There are so many dangerous areas in the world where the international community has stepped in. Why do we have to insist that this is bilateral? It should be something that should work in the interests of fair play, and it should concern the global community that there's a gross human rights violation happening right under their noses. In
Right.
this day and age, nothing can be concealed, you see.
Right.
So I think eventually, when it's in their own interests, all this business about bilateralism will only be on the surface.
Right.
And in the back channels, the United States will press India to find a
Right.
solution.
Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, former ambassador, joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Palwashah Ayaz Khan, legal and foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much for your time. And Dr. Awais Bin Wasi, Kashmir affairs expert. Thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.